Welcome to the WP-Tonic This Week in WordPress and SaaS podcast, where Jonathan Denwood interviews the leading experts in WordPress, e-learning, and online marketing to help WordPress professionals launch their own SaaS.
Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic show. This week in WordPress and SaaS, we've got a great special guest, somebody that I've been wanting on the show for a while. It was great news that he had some spare time to have a chat with us on the WP-Tonic show. We got Jason Coleman, the joint founder of Paid Membership Pro, and now also a partner in LifterLMS. So, Jason, thanks for coming on the show. I think we're going to have a great discussion about why you decided, you and your wife, to become part of the LifterLMS membership management team.
It also is the membership plugin show.
It all gets very confusing. And we'll also be talking about the things you've learned about being an entrepreneur in the WordPress plugin space with Paid Membership Pro. Should be a great show. So, Jason, would you like to give the listeners and viewers a quick intro?
Sure. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it. I watch this a lot. It's fun to hang out with you and Kurt. I'm Jason Coleman, co-founder of Paid Memberships Pro, membership plugin for WordPress. And I also co-authored a book for O'Reilly, Building Web Apps with WordPress, with Brian Messenlaner. Kim and I have been pushing WordPress to the limits for a while. We, did consulting work in the WordPress space from 2006 through, 2015 before we went full time on Paid Memberships Pro. And so I'm just a huge fan of open source and WordPress and pushing it and trying to, make good products that help people get paid. That's really our mission, and why we focus on Paid Memberships Pro is we enjoy that the users of that plugin and our customers, make a living off it, or the associations and nonprofits that use our software, make money that they use to serve their mission and change the world. So we really feel like I'm getting really highbrow there in the beginning, but we're trying to help, people get paid with their WordPress sites.
That's fantastic. Where's the gray hair? You look too relaxed. And
is it? That's the camera touch-up, probably. No.
Oh, right. There you go. If you've been involved in WordPress that long, then you get some grey hair. I also got my great co-host, Kurt. Kurt, would you like to introduce yourself to the new listeners and viewers?
Sure thing, Jonathan. My name is Kurt Von Onen. I own a small agency called Mañana No Mas, and we really focus on membership and learning sites there. I also work with WP-Tonic and LifterLMS, so it's fun to be on the show today.
That's great. Before we go into the meat and potatoes of this great interview, I've got a couple more messages from our major sponsors. We will be back in a few moments, folks.
Are you looking for ways to make your content more engaging? Sensei LMS by Automatic is the original WordPress solution for creating and selling online courses. Sensei's new interactive blocks can be added to any WordPress page or post. For example, interactive videos let you pause videos and display quizzes, lead generation forms, surveys, and more. For a 20% off discount for the tribe, just use the code WP-Tonic, all one word, when checking out, and give Sensei a try today.
Hi there, folks. It's Jonathan Denwood here, and I want to tell you about one of our great sponsors, and that's Zolo.com. If you've got a WordPress website, a membership website, and you're looking to link it with a great financial management package, Zolo can provide this solution. So all your bookkeeping needs are done through Zolo. If you need new inbox email functionality and you don't want to pay the high charges that Google will charge you, Zolo offers a great email inbox platform. They've got over 50 apps and services that all integrate fantastic with WordPress at great value levels, and they almost always offer a fully functioning free product as well. So it's just amazing value. Also, if you're a WordPress developer or agency owner, Zolo are looking for great partnerships in the WordPress space. to get all this information, all you have to do, folks, is just go over to Zolo.com and they have the products that you're looking for. Thank you so much, Zolo, for supporting WP-Tonic and the Machine membership shows. It's much appreciated. We're coming back, folks. Also, just want to point out that we've got a fantastic curated list of the best WordPress plugins. So if you're building a website for a client and you're looking for a specific niche or need, instead of having to trawl the internet and all the crappy articles, you can find a great curated list, and you can find all this by going over to wp-tonic.com/deals, wp/tonic.com/deals. And also you'll find some great special offers from our major sponsors. What more could you ask for? I suppose quite a lot, but that's all you're going to get from that particular page. So let's go into the great interview. So Jason, you know, it was fantastic news to hear that you and your team and your wife were joining the LifterLMS crew. So what were some of the opportunities and what attracted you to become part of the LifterLMS crew?
I think there's a couple primary things. So one is I've been on the lookout for like a second business to get into, like not just in the WordPress space. I was looking at like IRL real life businesses, like starting a float tank franchise or, opening car washes or something, or, other technology businesses, things we're talking with our friends. And that was kind of motivated by like my goal with the paid memberships pro business right now is to step back and level up my team so they can take care of more of the day to day. And I'm like, ideally, I'd be coming in once a week to be like, how's everything going? And I can help out with this and work on the business instead of in the business. And so in my mind, like, I wanted to use it as a force function. So it's like, hey, if I have a second business, I have to, of course, I can always be useful actually developing or writing content or doing things in the business. But like I was looking for like a second business to kind of force me to do that. And I forget like where I read about it, but I think when that happens, you get like, I'm married to the paid memberships pro business. It was my first business girlfriend in a sense. And so it's like decisions are really tough and feel super personal. And I think if you get, I wanted that experience. And then the opportunity came up with Chris Badgett at Lifter. We've been friendly. We share notes and talk shop about business. And so when kind of the opportunity arose, I was like, oh, I mean, that would be perfect. Like I understand your business and how it works, and it's very similar to this one. And it would be an opportunity to work with Chris. And like specifically, like another part of that is like, I think it's rare. I'm finding that like these good business operators like Kim, like I'm maybe one, but really Kim carries the team on Paid Memberships Pro and Chris carries it at Lifter. Like it's hard to find these folks. And so from the outside, I suspected, I was like, looks like Chris would be a good guy to work with and kind of like get stuff done on the business level. And like, it'd be good to like work closer with him. And now that I'm in the business, I mean, it's definitely like, that's definitely the case, like it's proven itself. So those were like the two main things really was kind of get a second business because it would force me to kind of, push myself towards the, like how I want to interact, with the businesses and an opportunity to work closer with Chris and, some interesting product challenges then.
So I totally understand what your attraction in working with Chris. But what was there also something that really, in business terms, attracted you to the learning management system space, to membership? Obviously, because of your original company, a lot about membership. So I could see the synergy being very attractive to you.
Yeah, definitely. I think like a few years ago, we added these surveys on the Paid Memberships Pro site. Like, what are you using your website for? Or what's your use case? And we knew a lot of people were building courses with Paid Memberships Pro and integrating with Lifter and LearnDash and the other LMS plugins. Or we have a lightweight courses add-on that just basically builds like a CPT. So you have courses and lessons. And And it was always meant like, it's like, hey, just like charge for access to a PDF or charge for access to a post, or if you want a little bit of structure, this is good. But an LMS is like a whole ass plugin. Are we allowed to curse a little bit on it? It's like, I was like, that's a whole ass business.
As Kurt would tell you, I can curse, but
okay.
I just have periods. I think for an extended period, Kurt, my swearing has died down, hasn't it?
It's died down quite a bit.
Yes, but I have moments where it's a filthy stream, Jason.
Yeah. But people would say like, hey, you should build your own LMS. And I'm like, that's a whole ass business. You know what I mean? Like people say, yeah, just do this in a weekend. And you're like, so we got that feedback from the survey on our site that it's something like half of our customers like either are directly focused on courses or also want to offer courses alongside their membership. And so we're like, this is a big thing and we need to, there's a lot of pressure. I keep like, hey, use these other plugins, and partnering with the plugins is difficult from the outside because stuff like, Lifter is our plugins work together, but they also compete. So it's kind of like they're also a membership plugin. We're also a membership plugin. And so that's the case with every other LMS right now. So it's hard, like the business incentives to get the software to work together well and get it to both companies to maintain it and agree on the terms and like who gets the money. And like that stuff's complicated. So there was some of that like in our minds for Pay Memberships Pro is like, I think we need to build out our course offering more, but I'd rather not. And then it's kind of, so that was like the great, like, oh, Lifter LMS, like, okay, now because there's a financial, we have a stake in Lifter, it's like, oh, we can manage the relationship more closely. Like, let's try to make it so our membership plugin works really tightly with Lifter, and then, it works for both users and both businesses. So there's definitely some of that.
Yeah. Great. Over to you, Kurt.
Hey, Jason. It's cool to see you on this call.
Yeah.
I'm privy to some of the stuff in the background and some of the really cool changes and influence that you and Kim have had on the company. Our daily meetings, some of the Scrum stuff that we do, some of the ideologies that you brought to the team and how the team's expanded. But a lot of folks listening just don't know, like they don't know what's going on. Right. So, what are some of the main things that you'd like to see improve with Lifter LMS? And I'd like to add to that question, like back end and front end, like things that people don't see and things that people do see.
Yeah. So, I think about it, like definitely I think Lifter is the best LMS option for WordPress. And just like Pay Memberships Pro, the free version is like, off the charts good and better than the premium offerings. So I think that was from like kind of a marketing and positioning standpoint, was like, hey, let's lean into free. And it's kind of ridiculous. Like if you use Paid Memberships Pro for your membership and Lifter for your courses, they're both free. And it's a crazy amount of value. Like there really isn't other plugins on the market that give you that much value, out of the box off the .org repository. And so I think it's like leaning into that. It's like not like kind of I'm doing that because we have to, or because I kind of want to, but I'd rather people pay. It's like, no, like let's be the best free offering and like really push that and get exposure for that. So in practice, then there's like a lot of little things we're doing. From the UI perspective, like you talked about, I think Lifter, the software needs like an accessibility pass on the front end and the back end of WordPress. We recently had an update in Paid Memberships Pro where we took a lot of the learning we got back from an accessibility audit that we did. Alex Stein and Amber Heard, I think, and I forget the name of the we put in the show notes. I forget the name of their show that we went on and got like a really good accessibility audit. But we want to take those learnings and apply them to Lifter so that, to bring it up to date accessibility wise. One thing we're doing too, like on the platform level, is like to make Lifter easier to use in a modular way. So I think like in reality, like Lifter's too good because it's like an end-to-end solution. It's like we have the membership and, the e-commerce, and we have access, and we have courses, and we have this other features on top. And I think that's really good for the Lifter user who's buying into all of it. But I think the average kind of WordPress site owner is like, I like using WooCommerce. I like using Paid Memberships Pro. I like using this feature for directories. I like using this feature for, for community platform conversations on my site. And I think because Lifter does it all, it's harder to use it in a modular way. So like the first step of that is what we launched with like PM Pro 2.12 that just went out, and some updates along the Lifter side to enable it, where if you activate Lifter while you're a paid memberships pro user and you activate Lifter, it actually hides a lot of the functionality of Lifter and assumes like, oh, you're comfortable using paid memberships pro to handle these pieces. And there's an option in the wizard, so you can opt out and get all the features if you want. But so I think we're going to figure out that model of PM Pro and Lifter and see how that works, and then try to apply that. Like, how can we give the full service, because the customer a lot of customers want the end-to-end solution, and it's easier for us to just manage things ourselves. But it's like, how can we make it also modular so that you could fit, Lifter in to an existing site without like shaking things up,
Sweet. Jonathan, over to you.
Yeah, I just got a quick follow-through question, because I think you touched on something that's really tricky, but really, really important, not only for your own business, Jason, but for the future of WordPress, really. Because it's really tricky what you've just outlined, because you could go, and I'm not having a go at anybody, because everybody has to choose their own business road. So I totally understand it. You could want to go down the road with LifterLMS and develop what I call a WordPress wall garden. And what I mean by that, Jason, is something like Thrive Themes or Access Alley, where I totally understand why the founders and the owners went down that path. But also, I think the consequences of going down that path is that you end up with the worst of WordPress and the worst of SaaS combined. But on the other hand, I think personally with Lifter, with a plugin like Lifter, trying to provide more of an environment that some of the leading SaaS providers around landing pages, marketing automation is important, but in the same breath, avoid a wall garden environment. Do you think there's anything to what I've just said? And have you been thinking about this yourself?
Yeah, totally. I think the incentives in how like the WordPress community and the marketplace work push companies and users in that direction. And I feel like I'm fighting against it, because I really, at the top of the show, I said I like helping people get paid, and I focus on like, how am I going to make the best software first? And then like, hey, if we have really good software, we can build any kind of business we want on top of it. But the business incentives are outweighing like the open source incentives a lot of the times for these relationships. So for example, like the way Lifter and Paid Memberships Pro integrate now, I'm saying like, this is a great thing, but in reality, Lifter charges a premium add-on to charge for access. If you want to use WooCommerce or Stripe or PayPal to charge for access to things, you pay Lifter, a couple $100, but now you just use Paid Memberships Pro for free. And we had the same issue with like the Paid Memberships Pro WooCommerce add-on has like 10,000 users. I really reluctantly built that, but a bunch of years ago I was like, all right, the customers want this, let's build it. And some percentage of those customers are doing like really clever things with the WooCommerce site where they're like, I want a membership and a store next to each other, and I have discounts for members, and I'm kind of using it. But a lot of people are just using it because now I don't have to pay $200 a year for the members plugin and $200 a year for the subscriptions plugin. I can use Paid Memberships Pro for free. So it's kind of like when the business or like the software is like, hey, here's some free software that this other company is charging for, like our relationship with WooCommerce is like falling apart around that plug. Like they're not going to support it. Like, why should they? They're like, this costs us money. I don't care. And it's like, okay, like it's our common users, but it's 10,000 users versus 6 million WooCommerce users. And if they're not on WP or whatever, like, so I think these little sites are kind of like, they're getting left out, and again, like you said, you're like, I'm not saying it's wrong, like the businesses to choose different models, because it is just like the business has to do what it thinks is best. And what they, it's just the incentives are in place there. There's no force in the the WordPress community to say this is what we expect and get companies in line, from the top down. But I mean, whether they want to or not, TBD, I guess, is that result in worse software and worse experiences for users. It definitely fragments things and creates those walled gardens where like, are you using this platform or this platform and, within WordPress? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's just that I totally understand why somebody like Five Frames went with a wall garden solution. It was also linked to having a page builder available, and they want you to promote that. I totally understand it. And I understand because you get more control, you get a unified interface, you cut down on support, but you end up with a SaaS in WordPress, basically, because then, depending how you handle it, you exclude the ability of other leading plugins to plug into your wall garden. And there's different ways of handling that. So it is tricky, isn't it? Because if you don't go down the wall, that's one of the things that I admire about Chris and LifterLMS, because in some ways it offered a lot of functionality and it offered a lot of inbuilt, but it never went down the full wall garden route, to my mind. He still developed relationships and enabled other leading plugins to log in, to latch into the Lifter ecosystem, if that's making sense. Would you agree with what I've just outlined?
Yeah, totally. And it's little things like making sure we code things the WordPress way so it's easy to find the filter, and then supporting. And when another product company says, or we find out a plugin doesn't work, like I know on the Lifter side and the Paymenters Pro side, like our support teams take responsibility. It's like if you're using our software and something doesn't work, I'm not going to tell you to go to the host or go to the other product, unless we often share like it might be faster to ask them. But in reality, like I said, they're not necessarily incentivized to fix it. They're like, you should just use our thing, and it's like, and so we don't like what our users want. Like we'll build the compatibility, files and tweak our code to make it work as much. It's hard. There's like for the longest time, like I don't know, there's like a story in this. Famously on the Paymenters Pro team, everyone asked us to build our own login page. And this is a little bit like the problem with WordPress a little bit. So everyone's like, you should build a login page. And like, WordPress has a login page. You're good. I want it on the front end. There's a really good plugin called Theme My Login. It would just put your login on the front end. It worked great. Like just use the plugin. I don't want to install extra plugins. I'm like, that's a whole ass plugin. Like that guy, every time there's a login update, he fixes it. It's a good plugin, right? So just use it. We had like negative reviews that are like, is this really a membership plugin? It doesn't even have a login page. And it's like, I'm hitting my head, and like eventually I gave in. I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's build a login page. So now we build our own version of the login page. We try to make it like the default WordPress page, but on the front end, it has all this extra logic. So like if you're using WooCommerce login or Lifter login, or GoDaddy inserts some code, and WP Engine and Jetpack wants you to auto log in with your WordPress.com account. So it's all this developer time to rebuild a login page that works with everything. And it still fails. And when it fails, we get blamed. And it's really like, oh, like your host is inserting something into an MU plugin. That's why it broke. But because it's our login page now, we're like, it's a big headache. But like the incentives are there that like we have to do this. We have to own this because everyone wants it. And now every plugin, like probably like, I don't know what it is, like a quarter of the plugins with more than 100,000 installs, like have a login page. And it's like this should be in WordPress core potentially in a way, and everyone should use it and the user should be educated. But there's a lot of developer time kind of wasted, everyone building their own version of this stuff, because either they want more control over it so they can support it, they want it to work a certain way, or they want to make money. Like we don't charge for our login pages, but there's other stuff like that where it's like, oh, I know there's another version, but if I build it, I can charge for it, so that stuff's going on in the WordPress, and it's a lot of extra work on top of some other, things in the WordPress space that are causing extra work. Like every time we build a feature, it has to work as a shortcode and a widget and a block and an Elementor panel. And so it's like the developers are swamped with this extra work to make sure everything works every way that the customers expect it. And I think it's working out okay, but it definitely makes it harder for younger developers to get in, because and younger products to get in, I think. And it might be like a kind of tech debt weight that eventually starts to weigh the platform down and it makes,
Yeah, I just got a quick comment because this has been my secondary question, and I'm going to let Kirk answer the next question. The only way I can see this really, one of the possible solutions is that the leading WordPress Premier plugin providers really choose to have their own association and have a guidance around API access and work together in building this duplication. So they agree. Obviously, you're all in competition, and that competition overlaps either very directly or to some level. But you have to agree that it's the best for everybody, that there's an association and it has guidance about the quality of the coding and the API. I know it's probably pie in the sky, but I actually think that would benefit a lot of people financially, and in a lot of time that's wasted. But it would also mean that you're not excluding any new players. It's just you get a blue tick and people know it meets certain security and coding standards, and it also has the benefit of having some agreed level of API and access. Is this making any sense, or do you think I'm just talking a load of crap there? You can say, you're talking crap.
No. I think I think it makes a lot of sense, and there's been some efforts and some we thought about for sure. But it's like because of the incentives in place, and because the main business that owns the platform that our plugins are hosted on isn't on board.
They never will, but they never will.
It never will be. So one of my pet peeves now is the stats. That got taken off .org. And we used to not even get the activation stats. We would guess them based on the chart of growth. And that was our hack. But it feels like table stakes. I think other platforms that people are using your plugin, we have the stats, and Matt Mullenweg shouldn't be the only person with access to those stats. For example, like I said, our goal is to make the best software, and we would measure that by active installs. But I actually can't get that count accurately. And so I can't even make those decisions that would cost me money at the expense of, I would get installs, but cost me money, which is why would you expect other businesses to do that? But you can't even do that because you can't get accurate stats. So it's that's just one little thing, all these things on top of each other. It's an uphill battle to get it's real money. I think when you start going down that path and you get any three plugin companies, here's what we can agree on. Cool. We're all going to use the same login page. Great. I'll take the code out. But then the customer's why'd you take your login out? I don't like it. They'll be upset. And then, and then there's these other things we don't agree on where it's well, I'm not willing to give up, whatever my gateway access because that's how we make money. We charge, a lot of plugins give you some for free and then charge. It makes sense, business sense. If my customers are making money, I make money. And you're not a SaaS. It's not that easy to take a percentage of sales. The users don't want it. So you charge for the gateway integration. And it's just I think the solution. It would take top down effort to really enforce, and also make up, I guess, in a way, okay, you can't do your business this way, but this is how you should make money on this software. And I don't even know if it's the best. I think probably the model, and I'm having conflicts and personal conflicts around this. How do I think about my business? I think it's lean into capitalism and make the money and let the people get the scraps. And that, I think that's the model that a lot of these companies have. And it's kind of you either go with it or you go against it. And we'll do the best we can to make sure like I said, as many people as possible can use our plugin. Our software is free. Our code's on GitHub for free, and it's modular, so you can choose to use it. But we're not going to lock it out. We're going to do what makes sense to keep things integrated. But I think it'd be really hard to corral all these product companies into working.
Oh, it could if it was done. Yeah, I totally see where you're coming from.
Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe smarter people have the answers, or it'll naturally happen. I don't know.
I think it's really having a level where you understand there's only so far that concept could go, and it would only be recommendations and a certain amount, and you get a kind of blue tick. Use that metaphor.
Yeah.
And there'll be some benefit to it, but on the other hand, you've got to understand if people did join that kind of association model, there's only so far it could go, because otherwise it would just end up in a bit of a shit show, really, and just you waste a lot of people's time. But but I think you're totally your insights. Back over to you, Kurt.
All right. Well, it looks like you guys kind of covered what are the significant challenges in the WordPress.
I think we had mine, but you need to ask the question to get Jason's. I think listeners have heard mine, but I think they need to hear Jason's, Kurt.
And it's almost like in my mind, there's like a couple of things that are blending together over this question, because one of the questions earlier was like, what are some of the main things you'd like to see improved in LifterLMS for the next couple of years? Yeah. And we were kind of talking like, culture and user interface, but we didn't like discuss anything like what's like I want to see this. And then you started talking about login pages and crazy stuff, right? And then it says, what are some significant challenges that WordPress faces now? Yeah. And we're on the cusp of, 6.2 came out, then 6.3 came out, and they changed all the, menus for 6.2. And we just released SkyPilot at LifterLMS, which is a full site editing theme. And I'm thinking about all this development going on, and you had already alluded to whatever you make, developers have to keep tweaking it to make sure that it keeps working. So could you kind of, I don't know, maybe elaborate on what are some of these significant challenges that you think people in WordPress are facing right now in keeping up with all these changes and things?
Yeah. I mean, like that is one, like we have to test everything, like editing on the front end, editing on the back end, like I said, short codes, widgets, blocks, edit with Elementor. I don't know the exact market share of Elementor, but some of the metrics that we get based on like users who opt in is like it's at least a third of WordPress sites potentially. And it's potentially, and then if you look at like the classic editor is installed on like a third of WordPress sites. And so you're like, oh, Elementor might actually have more market share than Gutenberg in a sense. And so it's like we have to, make it work and do a lot of testing. I mean, honestly, we just hire more developers and we maintain it because that's what we have to do to keep the software working. I think like another challenge related to that is like that's been a problem recently and will keep becoming more of a problem is like security. And so there's been like a wave of security reports for big high profile plugins. Like no one's immune. Like the biggest plugins are getting dinged. And we had a security issue in December for Paid Memberships Pro that was kind of bad. And then there was an update like that someone used it in a different way. It's even worse. So we already pushed the update out in December, but it's like we had to push notifications into the platform. Like you actually have to update because people are doing like really bad stuff with this. And I think there are some developers who are like, this is easy, dude. Just like sanitize early, escape late, do what you're supposed to, use standards, unit test. And it's like, I guess, like, I think whenever a developer says something's easy, it's like a red flag. And I'm like, it's not really that easy. And like, we're all spending our time maintaining our login pages. And so like, we need more time to work on security. And I think, and also it's like the way the security issues are like interrelated. So like you could like, it's the attack vector. So a security issue in its own context isn't that big a deal. Like my favorite one is like, we have to escape the content that comes from translators. So like if a translator accidentally puts in like a closing div in like their translation and we don't escape that, it like breaks your site. But if they accidentally put in like half of a JavaScript and then this other vulnerability is used to put the other half of the JavaScript and then like, so the issue isn't like us as a plugin company, we can do as much as we can, but it's actually like, it's a bigger issue than just one product. And so I feel the Community Summit is coming up next week before WordCamp US. I hope that we can talk about some of these things where the plugins team does a good, and they're revamping their personnel, but they do a good job of like telling you, hey, there's a security issue. That the security companies like do a good job of responsible disclosure for the most part. But I feel like it would be good to actually spend some of the foundation money hiring security people to not just notify you of the issue, but actually fix it for you. Like that would be awesome. Like, and here's the fix. And like proactively, we're going to get everyone else to do this and train people, how to write more secure code, and kind of be more involved, because it is like, we should be responsible for the code we put out, and it really is on us. But it showed like the biggest companies, WooCommerce, like list them ourselves, but like these security issues get out, and it's kind of like if the companies with the most money and the most developers are having, you know what I mean? Like there's something else going on. So I'd like to see like more foundation support around security issues on the plugin side. So there's a lot of security focus on the core plugin for sure. And it's like, hey, like help us on the plugin side.
Well, you're
and not
so
just
right.
Like the smaller plugins too, like I'm worried about. They don't have someone who can go in and fix it. Yeah. Go.
Yeah, you're so right to point that out. And thank you because it was something that was really utilized to attack utilizing WordPress a while ago, wasn't it? It's open source, it's not secure. And I think in a lot of IT departments and a lot of things that died down to a certain degree. I think it's still prevalent to some extent, but it died down. But if this continues, that ugly dragon will reappear quite rapidly. And really the WordPress community really want to make sure that doesn't happen, does it? Mm. Would you agree on it?
Yeah. I'm like, it hurts everyone if we get like this black mark. And it literally hurts everyone. Like when there's a hack at a host, like the product companies like deal with it. When there's a hack in a plugin, then the hosts deal with it. Like, you know what I mean? Like we have these walled gardens, but we're all kind of using each other's stuff. And so we want, you can't just say, don't use that plugin or, use these like it. And I mean, with like the advent of like AI and AI enhanced security research, like it's already in use, and it's just going to make it like more of these vulnerabilities are going to be found, and they're more subtle and stuff like that. And it's not on the list of all the things we said. Like I just remember when I started, it was like, oh, edit the PHP file. And I did something and I put it in a plugin and I can sell access one person. I always had Kim, but literally like lots of cases of one person building something on WordPress that's really useful. So like now they have to know PHP and JavaScript and all the frameworks, and they have to build it for all the different use cases. And like the security is not as obvious as some people think. And there's these subtle attack vectors, and spam. It's kind of like when you put a site online, like you plug your PC into the internet, and it's like, if you don't have antivirus and it's a PC, like you're hacked within 10 minutes. It's the same thing with a WordPress site. Like if you don't have a firewall and, all these spam preventive measures, like people start testing credit cards on your checkout form, and it's overwhelming for the single, I'd like to see the community build the infrastructure and man it, like add human power to it to really help out, different plugins, so we can just opt into it and be taken care of a little bit. Anyway.
Yeah, I think they were great points. Thanks for that, Jason. We're going to go for our middle break, folks. It's been a fascinating discussion. We've got some great questions. When we come back, we will be back in a few moments, folks.
Hey, it's Spence from launchflows.com. If you've been looking for a fast and easy way to create powerful sales funnels on WordPress, then look no further than LaunchFlows. In just minutes, you can easily create instant registration, upsells, downsells, order bumps, one-click checkouts, one-time offers, custom thank you pages, and best of all, no coding is required. For as little as $50 per year, you can own and control your entire sales funnel machine with LaunchFlows. Get your copy today.
This podcast episode is brought to you by LifterLMS, the leading learning management system solution for WordPress. If you or your client are creating any kind of online course, training-based membership website, or any type of e-learning project, LifterLMS is the most secure, stable, well-supported solution on the market. Go to lifterlms.com and save 20% at checkout with coupon code podcast20. That's podcast20. Enjoy the rest of your show.
We're coming back, folks. Before we continue with this great interview. I just want to point out, if you're looking for a great WordPress hosting partner and a support, and just a partner in general, and you're building a membership website or community website on WordPress for a client, why don't you look at becoming a partner with WP-Tonic? We've got over 15 years experience. We specialize in membership and community websites. So if you've got a build out and you're looking for a great hosting provider, but much, much more, somebody that will consult and help you if you need help in the build out, we offer a lot of value. And you can find out more about becoming a WordPress a WP-Tonic partner by going over to wp-tonic.com/partners, wp-tonic-tonic.com/partners, and sign up, and we can have a Zoom and we can see how we can really help you in building out your client websites. So on we go. Yeah, thank you for that, Jason.
I'm sold. When do I sign up? I'm signing up.
I would be sold when I was actively developing to have somebody that could help you. My God, but we offer, it's just a great package. So you need to sign up, Jason. No.
I'm not looking.
I've got to say, I consider Jason's. When he was, I don't know how much actively you're developing because obviously you've got so many things to do. But there was about half a dozen. Your ego's going to your head's going to explode with this, Jason. There's about half a dozen developers that I really followed, and when I was actively developing, I kind of followed your stuff. And you were one of them. I put you in with like Pippin Williamson and a couple of the other people as a developer, as a WordPress kind of guru. I always thought you were in the top echelon of WordPress developers. So that's enough. So that's enough for your ego, because it would get too big otherwise. On to the next question before I really embarrass myself. What have been a couple decisions that you've had to make with Paid Membership Pro over the years that have kept you up at night? A couple of decisions you had to make with your wife or some leading people, and you just didn't know. And how did you make that decision? Anything comes to mind, a couple of decisions that you had to make that you just didn't know it was the right thing and you just had to make the best decision? And how did you make that decision? Just give some quick, if you're prepared to give some insight.
Yeah. I guess you added like that kept you up at night thing. And maybe I had some prepared, but maybe it makes me want to like change my.
No, go, because I did that. I'm a terrible host, and I just had.
No, it's good. I mean, I'm kind of like, I don't look backwards too much.
I've got to keep you on your toes, Jason, because otherwise, I've had some guests fall asleep on the show.
No. We should clip that. That'd be good. Use that in your marketing. But I mean, so. There's been some big decisions that definitely like impacted the direction of the company. I mean, one I'll glance over because maybe it's more of the same is like we decided to have a free option and lean for Paid Memberships Pro and lean into it and do it that way. At the time, like Wishlist Member and some others were like premium membership plugins. And it was like, let's make the best membership plugin, for free in the .org repository. And in some ways, there's the psychology of that is people are like, there's so many posts. It's like, if you can afford, like buy this other membership plugin. If you can, like Paid Memberships Pro is the best. I'm like, no, it's actually just the best. Like it's better than the paid options. It just happens to be free. Like, and that, like that message is hard to get across. Like people will like $100 bottle of wine better than the $10 bottle of wine. It's just human psychology. So we have to combat that. But I think on the flip side, we get the market share from having the free option and being at the top of the .org repository. And we're hitting our goal of getting the software, to as many people as possible. Like some other decisions that I think might be useful for people starting out to market products. If you want to sign up for building 4 different versions of your widgets and, learning JavaScript and PHP and whatever comes next. Sorry, I kicked my camera. So some decisions we made was to launch early and often. So I see a lot of folks who have a product and it's getting some traction and they're like, I want to make money from it, but I feel like I have to build a new version, or I have to separate the free version and the premium version. I have to build some extensions. I have to build something new before I can ask for money. And early on, we had the full plugin was free in the .org repo, and we just put hey, if you buy it from our website, here's the price, and you get access to us and premium support. And we had a do it for me plan to install it for them. And we still did consulting. So it led into consulting, and we made really good money. I went to other people with products, and they're like, we want to make money. It's like you could just copy our formula. I think we still have a post on the Paid Memberships Pro blog that's steal our business model or something like that. And it's, don't change the code at all. Just create a page, charge for access, and give people support. And there's tons of free ways to, free scout, or just have a BBPress form for support, or just email me back and forth. And you can so you can start early, gain traction, and then, you think you have to build add-ons, you think you have to build extensions, get some customers and talk to them first. And you can do that later. And I think some people think they launch and it doesn't go well, and they're like, I tried, I guess it's over. It's no, you can launch again. No one will remember. Put a different price, add a different thing, frame it differently, send a different email, and launch again. And so I see people kind of get stuck at those points where they have a product and they don't know how to charge for it. I think you can just try the easy thing of put up a page and ask for money, and you don't have to build anything new. You can just support and just install your plugin for people. And you might be surprised if you have a plugin with 10,000 free users that a certain percentage of them will just be happy to give you money. And then launch again. Yeah. And there's also plugins that get stuck at that $1,000 a month range or something. And and they kind of this isn't enough to replace my day job. And we kind of were at that point too. It's we're making some money, but it doesn't replace their day job. And we had to invest in it and go further and kind of be patient, because it could feel if you want $10,000 a month, you're that's a good low 6-figure salary that will replace my job. You're only at 1,000. You feel you're 10% of the way there, and you have to build up. But in reality, you're halfway there. Just selling, building something at all, you're 20% of the way there. Making one sale, all right, now you're 50% of the way there. And then getting up to $1,000, you have multiple customers renewal. All right, you're 90%. You're over halfway there. So it's kind of now. I don't know, a lot of those businesses maybe can't get to 10,000 for some kind of reason. They didn't find product market fit. It's not good enough. There's not enough customers, and you go back to zero. But I think there's a lot of people who kind of bail when they have a little bit of traction, but it's not enough. And all they had to do was wait a year and lean in. And that's hard to do. You have to invest. You have to mentally say, I'm going to invest in this for a year and see what happens, Yeah. So I think that was some of our mentality early on, and I think it would maybe be useful to other people who are earlier in the journey of trying to sell products in WordPress.
That's great. Over to you, Kurt.
Yeah. I almost want to ask as a follow-up to that is in your opinion, how do you know the difference between that gaining traction from a business perspective? Because now you've done this, right? So how do you know the difference between gaining traction, not gaining traction, versus you're just simply early to market? You solved a problem before critical mass realized it was a problem.
Yeah, that's a good question. And in some ways,
it's a planned question, so now I have to apologize.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, no, I mean, it's that is the question. That's your whole job, I guess, in that year while you're trying to figure it out. And in some ways you can't know, so you just have to take a stab. You just have to really try. And then, I mean, you want to be. I think if you want to always be growing, so there has to be some growth. And if you stall out, you have to really kind of analyze the funnel of how people are hearing for you. Where is it breaking down? Talk to customers and try to hear from them. I would have bought, but I didn't because of this. Sometimes there really is one thing So you kind of have to go deep to figure out like, what is that one thing that's stopping the growth of the company right now? And it really is. So if you have a year, it's like every month you're like, what's the one thing? Is it this? Didn't work. All right. Is it this? Didn't work. Is it this? Didn't work. Is it this? And they're like, oh, it was this. It was like, oh, they just were getting caught up at this point. That's kind of how it plays out in practice. But it is hard. You could be, then you spend a year or two and it's like, you wasted time, but you kind of have to mentally invest in it. And if you're always learning, is kind of a good backup. If you're kind of managing, I talk a lot about like going from consulting to products because that's how we did it. There's ways to like be a little secure and like still get contract work. Like, so even if your product didn't work out, you still got like exposure. You still became an expert in something that you can use to sell consulting. Yeah, hopefully that helps.
Sweet. Thanks for that. So the next question is, what have been some of the biggest influences or personal mentors that are connected to your business and career development?
Yeah. I have a couple here. So one is Jose Palomino, who's like a marketing consultant, and you can find his stuff at valueprop.com. And he has a book called Value Prop, which is probably like the best book for explaining like the fundamentals of marketing to anyone. He's kind of focused on, he has a lot of IRL, real life customers, not necessarily tech companies. And it's like the 2 million to 20 million range. So like you wouldn't necessarily be able to hire him probably for the typical WordPress business, but like read his book and read his blog posts. And it just honestly is like how we learn. Cause he was an early customer of ours and we just built his website and we helped him like lay out his book and we built a website for him that he never launched, which was awesome. That had like a lot of his content. He was really bad at taking his own advice. Like I think I've told him that and I'm saying this publicly, but like, he's a really good marketing consultant. And it was kind of like, you should just launch early. You should ship and he's telling other people how to do it. But we've learned a lot from him. And
it's so much easier to tell other people than to take your own advice, isn't it?
He's good at that. And it's still useful, like to hear from him. And I think that book, so people go like he has a book called like Value Prop, which is like, if you kind of don't know anything about marketing and business and you're kind of a tech person, I think you can read that and get like a little mini marketing, MBA type thing. And it definitely like a lot of our decisions, like the decision to go free and how do we distinguish ourselves from the competition. And like, a lot of that kind of comes out of like his teachings. Another one is like the folks at Basecamp. They had books like on remote work and I forget like their first book. I was a fan of that, and a lot of the like their design philosophies. And recently their book Shape Up is about like how to manage the development process. Mm-hmm. And we incorporated that at Pay Memberships Pro like a few years ago. And now that we're involved in Lifter, like Kurt hears about it to some extent, the dev team more. Like we're implementing it for Lifter, and we're getting feedback. At least now it's like a sample size of 2 companies I've been involved with implementing Shape Up and helping it to like accelerate like the development team and focus the development team. And so that book Shape Up is really good. We've adjusted it for WordPress. I know there's other WordPress companies like Saturday Drive at Ninja Forms was using it or is using it, and some others. So I hope to produce some more content around like how we use Shape Up, because it is like, it's a little different if you don't have as many people as Basecamp does. And a little bit like open source, they're like, you just ship it. And then you can change it and bring it back. And you're like, oh no, you can't do that in open source. Like once you ship it, it's on someone's website forever. And like, they're not going to upgrade necessarily. So, but there's a couple like key like lessons from the Shape Up, like in particular that work out. Like, so one is like how to consciously plan the stuff that our dev team is doing. Like it's tactically how to do that, like how to decide, like bring your team together, come up with ideas, pitch and bet, like this is what the business should be focused on for the next 3 months. And then it has like a systematic way to stop working on projects that are going over estimates. So this is like huge in development. You're always like, that'll take 2 weeks. And it really takes 6 weeks, and then it's still not done. And then it takes 6 months, and like fast forward a year and you spend a whole year building this thing. And like, it's like, should we really still be building this? So like with Shape Up, you have a cycle, you get to the end, it's like pencils down, like you can't work on it anymore. And you have to pitch it for the next cycle. And it gives like the management and everyone an opportunity to come in and like, do we still want to do this? Like we thought it would take 3 weeks. It's really going to take 6. Like, do we have the appetite to take 6 weeks on it? And based on what we learned in the 3 weeks already. And so I like that cadence of development of like, stop and you're forgiven. Like, it's okay. You didn't finish, and you can launch it later kind of a thing. Yeah. So, I mean, the Basecamp guys in general, we've been following them and like learning from them because they have like a, internet software company. But ShapeUp in particular has been really useful for us as a development, building products.
Cool. Jonathan, your favorite question? It goes to you.
Yeah. So obviously I'm from the UK. I live in America, Jason. I'm a joint citizen there. So I used to watch a lot of Doctor Who and the TARDIS. So if you had your own time machine and you could go back at the beginning of your WordPress journey, and you could give yourself some advice to yourself, what would you say to your younger version about a couple insights that you wish you knew at the beginning?
Yeah. It's really funny. Like, is this your favorite question? Was like, I don't like this kind of question. I'm like, I'm like, I'm
the torturer. I'm the interviewer, the torturer.
I mean, I'll answer something, but like, but yeah, it is like, I don't like the what ifs and counterfactuals. I also imagine like 41-year-old Jason going back to talk to like 25-year-old Jason, and I don't think he would listen. You know what I mean? Like,
no. I wouldn't even listen to myself because I'm a totally different. Well, I hope it's a bit of a shame if you're not a different person, isn't it?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. So it's like. Anyway, not to like blow up your premise, but I'm like, I feel really lucky. So I'm like, I don't know that
I talk a load of shit most of the time. So don't worry about it, Jason.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm really lucky, and I don't necessarily know like the right answers. I could just explain like what happened to me, and I don't know that like young Jason would listen to the ghost of future Jason. Although I do that exercise where I do the inverse, where it's like, what would 80-year-old Jason? Like I imagine what would 80-year-old Jason say?
Go that way then. What would your 8-year-old Jason tell you? 41. How old? You look very young for your age, actually. What would your 8-year-old say to you, Dad?
I mean, yeah. What would he? He would, like, how would he feel about me, like, working so much? He definitely, like, and I try to, like, spend more time with my family. I realized, like, that my kids are 11 and 14, and they're going to move out or have their own lives eventually. And so it's like, this time is, like, really precious. So the focus on that, try to make an impact. It is like, is making more money actually going to change things, or is it kind of like trying to like, help more people, things like that. It helps me, I think focus on like when I'm making big decisions. One thing I would tell my past self potential, or I would try, is like, and this is like, the theme is like, do I have a big head? But I would tell myself that like Kim and I are like exceptional. Like, I don't think we understood that early on. Like, so I would try to give myself a big head, and not just to like make me feel better, but I feel like it might have helped. Like I think there's some sense when different things were going on that like there's other smarter, better, well-funded, equipped people who are going to tackle this same problem. And like someone else will come do this. We just talked about these problems in WordPress, and I even said like maybe some smarter person knows the answer, and I was like maybe not. Maybe we're the right people to like fix it, and we just have to try a little harder or figure out if it's the right way. So I feel like getting some of that message, like, hey, like you guys are exceptional, and like just believe it, because like, and I think we've done well, but we might have pushed a little harder. We might have been a little more focused. We might have done some things slightly differently, like knowing like, oh, we're actually the only people doing this. And I think I learned this a little bit. So it's not too long ago, in like 2017, and Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico. And I have family there, so like I got involved. And actually, a lot of WordPress people, I put like a GoFundMe page, and a lot of people in the WordPress community like donated, and I appreciate that. And I do that now. Like I realize like in Maui, stuff's going on. I'll try to I'm a little emotional. Okay. Like when stuff goes on in the world, like I donate like mindlessly to those GoFundMes. Like, I mean, you want to check, like, do you really know this person? But like, I realize the power of like people send me money instead of the Red Cross. And I used it in a way that like the Red Cross couldn't. Like you know what I mean? I got it to people who wouldn't have gotten help otherwise. And it was like something I took off work, and I was like, it's like I was doing all kinds of stuff, but I was calling around to like hardware stores in Florida to find like gas pump nozzles, because if we could bring 2 gas pump nozzles to the airport in Aguadilla, they would like let us land the plane. We chartered a private jet, and luckily, like my dad's cousin like can fly planes, and it's funny, like he took like a little jet. It took like 12 hours to get from Florida to Puerto Rico. Like that's like a 1-hour flight on a big jet, but this little chartered plane, like loaded down with cargo, took forever. But it was like, hey, can we land our plane? Like I know Pitbull and, Mark Anthony have planes coming in, but we want to land our plane and get goods and supplies and money and things to the people that we know that were like needed it on like the western side of the island. So in my mind, I was like, why is like Jason Coleman, an internet developer in Reading, Pennsylvania, like organizing like a relief effort like across the water in Puerto Rico? And I was like, it kind of hit me that like whenever you see like a natural disaster like that, like there's definitely a lot of people who like emergency personnel, it's their job to go in and do it. And like the governments are helping and big charities are helping and like all that's happening. And those are really good folks who are doing good work too. But I was like, man, there's for every one of those, there's like 10 random people who are getting involved. And so it was like, I don't know, like, so that experience, I took that like the business. I was like, oh, like that's weird. Like this, I never thought of that like there's individual people are having like an influence, like in a small way. So I'm like, I take that to that's like a weird story, but I take that to business. It's like, oh, like you build this software that tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of sites are using and they make money from it. And they're, it's having an impact on the world. So we try to take it seriously. And I didn't realize that in 2012 when I was just building a plugin and trying to get people to, pay for it. I was like, oh, like this actually is important work and feel good about it,
Yeah, it's all kind of linked, really, Jason, isn't it? For you to be able to organise something to help others, which is, I don't talk about it, but I'm not going to talk about it too much, but I've been very supportive of the Ukrainian people and their struggle financially and through other of my actions because I am totally committed to their struggle. Utterly. And I do the best I can and I'm just totally committed to it. So you just have to find your poison, don't you? But thanks for that insight, Jason. It was fantastic. So, Jason, what is the best way, Jason, for people to find out more about your madness and your schemes and what you're up to, Jason, you and your beloved wife?
Nice. You can still find me on Twitter, Jason__ Coleman. It's like that platform's up in the air. But I do post there the most often and like people who DM me there get a hold of me. My personal website is therealjasoncoleman.com. So it's usually up to date with like links to like where I'm at and what I'm doing. And check that out and check out, Lifter and Paid Memberships Pro if you're, building a LMS or membership site. Like it is the best software. It is free. And we're like the most helpful people in the world. Kurt's going to help you. So it's like, it's all good.
What more could you ask for? So Kurt, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to, Kurt?
Well, Jason just sent everybody to LifterLMS for me. But anything that's Mañana No Mas online, you'll be able to find me, Mañana No Mas. And I'm the only Kurt Von Ahnen on LinkedIn. So if you find Kurt Von Ahnen on LinkedIn, that's me. We should connect and see what we can do for each other.
Oh, that's great. And folks, if you want to be part of the WP-Tonic community, why don't you go over to the Membership Machine group on Facebook and join that? It's a great community of WordPress people and people trying to build a membership website. There's a load of good comment and stuff on there, so join us on there. And we've got some fabulous guests coming up the next month. Hopefully Jason will come back next year and talk some more. I think it's been a fabulous discussion. And just tell people about the show. We're getting more listeners, more views with the support of Kurt as well, building a great audience. We will be back next week with some other great WordPress SaaS insights to build the kind of business that you're dreaming, to give the kind of support to your family that they deserve. We will be back soon, folks. Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. We really do appreciate it. Why not visit the Mastermind Facebook group? And also to keep up with the latest news, click wp-tonic.com/newsletter. We'll see you next time.